21 million people, yes, you did hear that right, 21 million people will undergo COVID testing in Beijing, China's capital city, amid the latest COVID outbreak. This after Beijing reported just 29 new locally transmitted COVID cases from 6 districts. Fears are also growing that China's capital could now be placed under a very strict lockdown, similar to the one Shanghai has now seen for over 40 days. As China tries to contain a wave of infections. China has a strict zero COVID policy. Minesh Pore, based in Shanghai, an Indian-born entrepreneur, is with us now. Thank you very much indeed for speaking with NDTV. Now, Minesh, what's it been like living under this shadow of China's very strict zero COVID policy and all the crackdowns that this has meant?
So the policy, zero COVID policy, of course, has its drawbacks, but there are advantages. As somebody living here, I can see some advantages and some disadvantages. The advantages here have been that the government has been taking care of people. We've been getting free food. All the tests, we've been doing the PCR tests as well as the antigen tests for free. And we've been forming committees between our neighbors, and ordering foods, etc. has been not that difficult. But at the same time, what is more scary than the COVID itself is the central quarantine and the separation from family. So if you have kids and family members, there are chances you might get separated and thrown into central quarantine facilities which are not up to the mark and which have leaking bathrooms. I have friends that have been there, seen videos where they get stuck with no bathrooms, no proper conditions for even taking a bath. So yeah, it's very scary.
There have, of course, been rather terrifying accounts of sort of people cracking under this very severe lockdown, and sort of reports of people, in fact, some even resorting to sort of extreme measures. Now, obviously, given the sort of media clampdown there is, sometimes it's hard for these stories to be authenticated. But, what is the sense you're getting living in Shanghai?
So people are stressed out, but I haven't seen any violence, to be frank, because we are not allowed to get out of our main door. So there is no question of us or anybody else being able to do any violence. Right. There might be things that are happening in other parts, but we get to see what you get to see.
But what has it meant for you personally as an ordinary citizen of Shanghai? You're saying you're getting enough food, but there have also been sort of reports of, food drying out in supermarkets and grocery shops and so on. So, what's your sense on that?
Yeah. So it is true. We cannot get what we want, right? We would have to rely on what we can get in terms of government help, whatever the government supplies. If you are completely vegetarian, you might have a challenge because you will not get all the vegetables you need for that. There are challenges with getting certain basic necessities, but luckily, I'm in an affluent neighborhood where we can get together with our neighbors and get the goods that we need. But that needs minimum order requirements. For example, we would need to buy 5,000 to 10,000 RMB worth of goods. And if people don't have that kind of money, it is very hard.
Now, Minesh, as someone who sort of works in the supply chain sector, so to speak, what are the larger sort of impacts of this very tight lockdown and this very tight restriction for inflation, for sort of shortages of products and services? What is this going to mean going ahead for China?
So in the long term, I would think that there is going to be an impact where buyers that were buying from China because of the lower cost of labor or because of the supply chain availability or the supply chain infrastructure that they had, and considering all the geopolitical pressure that is there against China right now, there are more of a chance that shifts would happen. Larger shifts of move of production from China might happen. I'm in the sourcing business. We depend. I'm here because we depend on production in China, but we have to hedge our bases as well. So we are developing, for example, our networks in Indonesia, in Thailand, in Vietnam, in India, in Bangladesh, because we would need to hedge production in different countries.
Interesting indeed. And thank you for joining us on NDTV and sharing your thoughts. Minesh Pore, an entrepreneur in Shanghai, speaking with us about what the extreme COVID lockdown has meant.